So this is never gonna happen, so I'm not sure why I'm telling you about it, but Jack and I saw a house. Basically, we've been living in our current flat for over 4 years now. We really like our flat. It's pretty, we've renovated it, we've ripped out ceilings, we've redone the windows. There is so much effort that went into the flat. And even though we do like it, it is very, very small. So we live on just below 50 square meters with 2 people and 2 pets. And Jack and I like to own things. So we're not minimalists at all. And we've got a lot of clothes. I mean, I am a seamstress, so I make a lot of clothes, but also I do a lot of collaborations, and Jack just really likes his clothes as well. And I like my books, and it is very crowded. For the past years, we've always been aware that this wouldn't be our forever home, even though we do really like the flat, and we kind of could see ourselves moving back in here one day when we're old, because it's a nice ground floor flat with a small garden that's easy to maintain. But just for our current life and future plans, it just seems like we need something bigger. So we've always been looking online. It's just like a hobby of ours, just looking at potential flats and being like, oh, look at this £500,000 house. I hate the kitchen. So it's just, I don't know. We've always been on the internet looking at houses, and there have been things we've liked. They're out of our budget, within our budget, but never kind of like anything that made us go, okay, we need to do something about it. Until we saw this house, 3 bedrooms, outskirts of Paisley, entirely stripped down. Someone who lived in there had passed away and they've never done any renovations, so it's a Victorian terraced house. Floors, really bad state, but hardwood floor, original fireplaces everywhere, nice cornicing. And we just both saw it and we were like just absolutely stunned by it, especially because the price of the house was about the price of our flat. So with that, I should say our flat is in a conservation village, so this is an absolutely prime location, but we just couldn't afford a house here. Whereas the house we've looked at is in the outskirts of Paisley, so I personally like Paisley. It's got a bit of a bad reputation, but it's actually quite cute. The city centre has some character, and it is really close to the countryside while still being able to commute to Glasgow, where Jack works and I currently work. So it is a really good location, and because it's the outskirts, it is a bit cheaper because the location isn't as good as our current village. But then I was again, we were looking at it and we were like, this is quite nice. It doesn't have central heating, so that would all need to be done. The floors look horrendous and need to be sanded and stained. Our flat was actually perfectly inhabitable when we moved in, but we just ripped everything out. So often these perfectly inhabitable flats that people just move in, for us would be a lot of effort. Like with our flat, we ripped out the ceilings of most rooms because they were lowered to expose the original cornicing and ceilings, but then those were in a bad state, so they had to be completely replastered. We ripped out all of the windows and put in normal sash windows. That is kind of like the style the house would have had originally. We ripped out the log burner and put in a Victorian fireplace. So it just felt like all of these modernizations to our flat that made it worth more for us were actually really annoying. So this house being very plain and not having any of these renovations done makes it easier for us because we don't have to undo something before fixing it. So, the house was just nice, but we weren't really considering anything. I then one day got the house report because I wanted to know what issues were there, like not having central heating. At the same time, Jack got a mortgage in principle for us because we weren't sure whether we could get a mortgage because I'm a student. So you have to find a bank that accepts the studentship as income. We could sell our flat and just move the mortgage over to the house, but we just don't want to. This is a nice flat, this is a nice location. We just want to rent it out for a while and then eventually move back when we're old, which would be much nicer. And also, if we move somewhere we don't like, we always have a home to come back to that we know we love. One night we were just kind of like, well, I got the home report, and Jack was like, well, I got us a mortgage in principle. But we were still very much like, yeah, we're not gonna bid on it or anything. A few days later, we ended up driving home, but our entire road home was closed, so we had to drive through Paisley past the house, and we were like, well, we might as well get out and see the neighborhood, because at that point we were still like, the neighborhood's probably crap. But then the street looked perfectly fine, like little Victorian terraced houses. So we realized this is like a fine neighborhood. There's nothing like dodgy about the neighborhood, nothing scary. Because again, we were like, why is it so cheap? There must be something bad about this flat. It's not the neighborhood. So we then ended up viewing it. And it's not the house, because I was expecting mold or something like, I don't know, corpse in the basement. Nothing. So like I said, we then went to the viewing. It was a bit disheartening because there were so many other people. Also, tradesmen that were measuring stuff out and looking at things. So very clearly people that knew that the neighbor house had sold for like 60,000 more, and just putting in central heating would fix that, and they could just buy it and sell it on. And families were looking at it, and it just felt like, you know, we're not gonna get it. So on the drive home, I was actually really sad because I realized how much I liked the house. The entranceway was just so nice. So like you walk in and there's this hallway and it's quite big, and our hallway here is just like a hallway of doors basically. So you've got no space to like put your clothes or your shoes. Everything has to be in the rooms. And that was a real hallway where you could put a shoe rack and like something to hang your coats, and it was really nice. And then you've got the living room, the dining room, and then a side room that was the current kitchen, but it's like an addition, so it's quite modern and not that nice. So we almost felt like, oh, you could put the kitchen into the dining room, which was the original kitchen, and use that as like a laundry room, storage room, pantry. So all the things that like you don't really want to have in your kitchen, like the bins, the washing machine, they just can't go there. So all the other rooms will be nicer for it. And then it's got a downstairs toilet, and then halfway up it's got a toilet, bathroom that's like properly a bathroom, which has a bathtub and a shower handle, but not like a shower hand holder. And then you go to the top floor and it's got 3 bedrooms. It's got a private garden and a front yard, because currently our flat is just like on the street, and it's quite a busy street. Our town, because it's a conservation area, it gets a lot of tourism, and anyone who wants to walk from the high street to the loch walks past us, which is just very busy. And like you've seen reels probably, or like stories of me mentioning that I was doing something and someone was looking into the window. Having a front yard would just be amazing. So that's kind of where we're at. So there were a lot of people viewing, and we put in a note of interest. And again, we were like, how did this happen? Because we weren't actually planning to buy anything, and suddenly we're putting in a note of interest. And I'm selling all of my branded dresses to get some more cash. I'm not sure if you're aware how houses sell in Scotland, but basically you'll have offers over. So let's say it's offers over 150,000. That means usually the flat is worth 160. If you get the home report, it will tell you. Anything that you bid over 160 is money you have to pay in cash. The mortgage does not cover that. So currently houses sell for between 10 to 30% over in Scotland, depending on where you're buying. So we were really hoping that there would just be no interest, because it doesn't have... Archie? We were really hoping that this house would just not have any interest because it doesn't have the central heating, and like I said, it has, like, so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. Even though for us it would be fine, but like many other people that just want to move in would maybe be put off by needing to put in central heating. So yeah, so we were hoping there's no interest and maybe we can just bid like 5 under or something. But now it's going to a closing date, of course. I think it's not going to happen. If we need to put in central heating and do the floors and cover 2 mortgages for a while, we just don't have the money to then also bid like £20,000 over, which is fine. I just don't think it's going to happen because of that. We'll still try. Like on the drive home after the viewing, I was so sad because I was like, I really want to live in this house. I could see myself having a family in this house. You know, there's space for a Christmas tree in the bay window, because our current flat, as much as I love it, doesn't have space for a Christmas tree because the kitchen's too small to have a table. So our dining table is in the living room, which means having like a dining table, 2 chairs, a sofa, an armchair, and my 27 million books. There's just no place for a Christmas tree. And I don't know, I just miss having a little bit more space. And I could so see myself in this house. So we'll see how it goes. But as of today, that's what's happening. Closing date is next week. We're going to make our bid and we're not gonna get it, and I'm not going to be too sad about it. It's the day of the closing date and I am a little bit nervous. So we did actually go back to the house a couple of days ago and we did another last minute viewing because we felt like it would be nice to get a chance to look at it again and assess what really needs to be done, and also measure some stuff out, because with our current flat, when we bought it and the offer was accepted, they wouldn't let us back in until we got the keys. So it was a little bit annoying because we couldn't measure things out and we couldn't really get another look at what needs to be done. So we felt like with this property, because so much needed done, we went back in, took more pictures and measured stuff out, just so we had a vague idea what we were working with if our offer was accepted today. But I thought, whether the offer is accepted or not, it would probably be fun for you guys to see the house as well. So I did film a few sequences there and I'll just show you what it looks like. yeah, with that, we can just wait. So I think our offer is competitive, but I am not sure it's going to be the best. But because we're not in a chain, we don't need to wait for this house to sell. We could buy the house quite quickly, which means that might make us a good choice. But it just really depends on what the seller wants, and whether someone just offers like 20,000 over, then just considering, you know, the heating has to be done, floors need to be done. We've also realized some of the electricity has to be done. All the plumbing in the bathroom has to be done. There's just a lot. So still, for the price of the house, it's fine. It's just a lot of cash that still needs to be paid if we got it. So that means we couldn't just offer like a crazy amount. I will go to work today and I will be sitting on hot coals waiting to hear back, because the solicitor said they would probably get back to us late afternoonish. I will let you know how it goes. It's Saturday, and we didn't get the house. We did kind of expect that, because it was too good to be in our price range, even with all the renovations that needed to be done. But I was still pretty sad about it, to be honest, because we just spent so much time having to think about what to do with the flat, to get like quotes, and just to logistically think about what needs to be done and how much we can offer based on how much else needs to be paid, that we ended up kind of envisioning ourselves in this house way too much. So when we got the news that our offer wasn't accepted, it was, for me at least, I was very sad. So Jack had a bit more of a manly approach to it, and he was like, well, you know, it didn't happen, we just have to move on, we'll not think about it again. Whereas I very much grieved the life I had seen myself living. So a bit of a conflict point between us, but I just gave myself an afternoon to kind of be sad about it. And then the next day I moved on. Like, I know this isn't kind of like the exciting video that you might have been expecting, but also quite realistically, this is what happens. Because I know most people on the internet only share their success stories, but most of the time making offers on houses does not work out. For this flat, this was actually the first offer we ever put in for anything. We did view another house, but didn't like it. So then we put in an offer for this flat and immediately got it accepted on the closing date. So that is not normal. I talked to a lot of people and they put in lots of offers on different houses before ever getting something accepted. I feel like it's maybe good to share this as well, because I know that many people can relate to this, kind of like the sadness that comes with having envisioned yourself somewhere and then you're never going to live there. You're never going to paint the walls in the color that you wanted to see. Yeah, so this is reality. So I have to say, in retrospect, even though if the property came back on the market, you know, if whoever won their mortgage rejected, you know, I mean, not that I'm hoping for it, I would immediately put in an offer again. There were some things about this house that weren't perfect, but then again, in our price range, it's never going to be perfect. So whereas the house in itself, I really liked, I mean, I did mention this, the location wasn't amazing. I would have made this compromise, but also our village is much smaller and way more rural, and you just see the open fields everywhere. Like, I can just walk around the corner, I'm at the loch, and then if I walk into the other direction, there's just fields. So I really like that. I like being able to just walk out and be in nature, and that is something that when I lived in Glasgow, I felt so caught. It just, like, in every direction, there's just like sky-rise buildings. So I would have worried that even though the property was on the edge of Paisley, because it's kind of Paisley on one side and the airport on the other, there was nowhere to go. It was just city. So I wouldn't really have liked that. I wouldn't have been able to go somewhere with Archie to take pictures. Jack would have had to drive me everywhere. And then also the inside of the house, obviously especially the hallway, I loved so much. I just already saw how I would paint it, what color, and I really liked the idea of coming home to this hallway on top of doing the central heating, plumbing, floors. But we also realized that the electricity was a bit dodgy. So every room had electricity, which is a good start, but all the power plugs were next to the fireplaces. So there were like 4 plugs next to the fireplace, but then nowhere else in the room which is okay, but also it means that if you wanted to have a lamp in a corner that is not next to the power plug, you'd need to feed extension cables everywhere. So we were then almost like, oh, we probably have to redo the electricity before moving in, because we had the electricity redone in this flat and that was such a massive job and it was so dirty. So the electricity had to be done before the floors could be done, and the floors need to be done before we move in. So it just became quite a big job, which again, if the property came back on the market, yes, I would do it again. But it just made me think that maybe, you know, yeah, there will be other flats. Sorry about that, my battery died. So in case you're wondering why I had to kick Tilly off. But what I was trying to say is there will be other houses or flats in the future that I like, and I like them for different reasons. And I will probably continue comparing them to this flat. But maybe they'll be better or maybe they'll be worse. But I guess in the end, yeah, you'll never find the perfect property unless you're really rich, I guess. Being a book girly, I'm just trying to tell myself that this is all for the plot. Because basically, maybe there will be something better and that's why we didn't get it. And, you know, that's what I'm holding on to. There is this one village that Jack and I have been really liking, and that's towards Stirling. So it is like a very small village, smaller than our current village, and there are some Victorian houses there that frequently go for sale, like maybe once a year, like every half year or so. And they're not houses, so they would be flats, but they're maisonette flats. So that would be something I'd consider as well, because I really want an upstairs, but I guess having an entire house is maybe a bit ambitious. So a maisonette flat would work as well. And they don't have a private garden, so it would often then be like half the garden is the downstairs neighbor and half the garden is the upstairs neighbor, a little bit like we have here currently, which is again not really what I want, because I'm a loner and I really like just being by myself in the garden and knowing that no one will walk in. That village is actually like a perfect location because it's halfway to Perth. So currently if Jack wants to go to Perth, where his friends and family live, it's like 1.5 hours each way, which is way too far, so we don't go very often. But if we lived on the other side of Glasgow, it would still be the same commute to Glasgow, but we'd only be half an hour to Perth. So that would actually be better for us. Like I said, the village is just really tiny. There's a river, there's a lot of countryside, so you just walk out and you're basically in a field. And I think for me, that would be ideal. I wasn't sure whether this is like really a story that's worth sharing, because obviously nothing really happened. We just viewed a flat, put in an offer, didn't get it. But then I guess this is the reality of what's happening, and I don't know, I just thought, you know, you guys have to listen to me talk about everything, so you might as well hear about this part of the story as well. But at least we now, because we've been so hurried about everything, we had to kind of like sort the mortgage in principle and generally like and look into our funds and everything. So if something else came on the market, we'd now be ready, which is also good. So yeah, at least that means if we found something else we liked, we could immediately put in an offer and just be like, you know, we'll pay this much, but only if it doesn't go to a closing date. So we'll see, we'll keep watching. I've made lots of alerts for my Rightmove app, so if something comes on the market in the right areas, I'll see. And I guess my question is just, would you be interested to see more? Because maybe the next property we see will be, ooh, Jesus Christ, Tilly. Maybe the next property we see will be our next home. But it could also be that we just view a lot of properties and put with way more offers and nothing ever happens. But I am a very nosy person and I love looking at houses. So maybe, you know, this could be a thing. I could just show you all the houses we didn't get, you know, it could be fun. But hopefully we'll eventually find something. And with that, I'll continue my normal sewing content. Yeah, we'll just try to make our flat ready to be rented out. Fix up some more things that we've been putting off over the years. Tilly says she would really like to have a big garden though, because she loves being in the garden. She likes eating grass. So I'll have to leave you on a sad note for this video, unfortunately. But I would love to hear your experiences with buying houses, whether you ever got your first offer accepted or whether you, just like us now, also had to go through this trouble of like putting in lots of offers and just not being successful. I'll keep you updated. Luckily, Scotland has a lot of period properties, so at least, even though they might not be houses, there is a lot to choose from. So we'll just keep our eyes open and I will keep you guys updated, and I will see you in my next video. No, that sounded very Rachel Maxey. I have to do that again. So I'll see you in my next video, hopefully. And if you like this and you want to see more, specifically sewing, because that's what I normally do, come and join and subscribe, and yeah. Bye-bye.